Hello, I'm OU President Joe Harris. It's my honor to welcome you to the Neustadt Prize event sponsored by World Literature Today. At the University of Oklahoma, we are extremely proud of the Neustadt Prize program. Thanks to the Neustadt family, for more than 5 decades, there have been Neustadt Prizes given on our campus and celebrated the world over. The Neustadt International Prize for Literature and the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature are world-famous honors that go to the most important writers anywhere. This tradition has been celebrated by the Swedish Academy that awards the Nobel Prize in Literature. And the New York Times once noted that the Neustadt Prize is second only to the Nobel in terms of its importance around the globe. As we turn to the next 50 years of the Neustadt Prize program, it's only fitting that this year's laureate is award-winning author Boubacar Boris Diop. A prominent novelist from Senegal, he has helped establish new benchmarks of excellence in international literature. His own work and support of other African writers are the epitome of what the Neustadt International Prize in Literature is meant to recognize. In many ways, the Neustadt Prize and its celebration of literary voices from across the globe embodies our fundamental purpose at OU, to change lives. We thank the Neustadt family for their outstanding and longtime support of our university. And we thank all of you who have joined us for this year's festival.
Thank you to Joe Harris for that. He just does an incredible job. We're still learning to live with this Zoom world, so a lot of our audience today is on Zoom. And I want to welcome our Zoom attendees and also you here today. Good afternoon. It is such a wonderful honor to be here to present the Neustadt International Prize for Literature. I'm just pleased to welcome each and every one of you to this. It's something we live for. We prepare all year to do this, and we have such a wonderful laureate this year that has just been very, very exciting. This award is given every other year and sponsored by the University of Oklahoma and its international literary publication, World Literature Today. The prize is one of the most prestigious literary prizes in the world, often compared with the Nobel Prize in Literature, as President Harris said. The New York Times has called the prize the American Nobel. Like the Nobel, it is awarded to writers for the entire body of their literature. And since its founding in 1970, some 33 of the winners, laureates, candidates, or jurors have been awarded the Nobel Prize. And the Nobel Committee in Sweden has said that the Neustadt Prize is one of the lead-ups. We watch what happens with what you do. Around the giving of the prize, WLT each year creates the Neustadt Lit Fest, a festival recognizing literary excellence and bringing the greatest writers in the world to meet with and inspire OU students. The Neustadt programs recognize literature as a source of cultural understanding for the many nations of the world, and we at WLT are honored to be the stewards of this really great tradition. This afternoon, World Literature Today joins with the Neustadt family to honor the 2022 winner of the prestigious Neustadt International Prize for Literature, Boubacar Boris Diop from Senegal. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce 3 members of the Neustadt family to talk about the Neustadt Prize tradition. First, Susan Neustadt Schwartz, the S in the NSK Neustadt name, is an invaluable advisor on all Neustadt programs and WLT matters. She lives in Dallas, Texas, and has 2 grown daughters, Elizabeth and Kate, an avid equestrian and competitor in hunter jumping events as well as ballroom dance competitions. And she's pretty amazing on the dance floor. She was co-founder and board member of eQuest, a therapeutic horseback riding program for the disabled that is one of the largest and best such programs in the U.S. She received a BFA in art history from the University of Oklahoma and a master's in education from Southern Methodist University. She's also a board member of the Shelton School in Dallas and won a National Volunteer Award in 2005. In 2010, she received the OU Regents Alumni Award for her service to OU and was most recently honored with the 2017 Audrey Kaplan Inspiring Woman Award from the Southwest Jewish Congress. Please give a warm welcome to my good friend, Susan Schwartz.
I am so happy to be here this afternoon to welcome you to the 2022 Neustadt Lit Fest. This ceremony is where we award the Neustadt International Prize for Literature. On behalf of my sisters and my family, I extend to you a very warm welcome as we celebrate the winner of the 27th prize. It's such a pleasure to be here again in person and to recognize the best of the best in world literature. Since 1970, the prize has gradually become one of the premier literary awards, and each year we make literary history as we gather here, exactly as we are doing today to celebrate the most recent winner. This event will reach around the world and will show up as breaking news in literary capitals everywhere. In other words, as we award the Neustadt Prize today, the whole world is watching what we do. And we will savor that recognition and the impact of the prize in the world of literature and arts. My sisters and I grew up attending these celebrations. We always felt so proud to see the OU president and our dad giving the Neustadt Silver Feather, a certificate, and a check to the writers that we had read about and knew were famous everywhere. It is still a pleasure and such a special moment to see the good work that the Neustadt program does in bringing the world's most amazing writers to campus to meet and inspire OU students in their own quest for greatness. We are so glad that we can support the Neustadt program, and we look forward to being a part of this great tradition for many years to come. Thank you so much for being here in person and on Zoom. And now I'd like to introduce my sister, Nancy Barcelo.
Let me say a few words about Nancy first. Nancy is the N in the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature. She lives in Watertown, Massachusetts with her husband, Scott. She has 2 grown children, Sam and Emmy, who are wonderful. She was recently the director of the Hospice Volunteer Program for the VNA Care Network and Hospice, and worked for 24 years as a volunteer and director of the programs. She continues to provide hospice education to groups in the Boston area. In 2010, Nancy received the Regents Alumni Award for her service to OU. An active advisor for the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature. Nancy is a lover of books who received a BA in English from Skidmore College and a master's degree in reading from Lesley College in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Please welcome my good friend, Nancy Barcelo.
It's a pleasure for me to talk this afternoon about the partnership of my family and the University of Oklahoma. My father was always involved in Oklahoma University from the Sooners. We actually got to go on airplanes with the football team, and just so many amazing aspects of my father's love for OU. I do want to say a couple of things that honestly gave my father a lot of joy. And he was kind of an in-his-head person, a very smart guy. I'm sure my sisters and I and my grandkids, his grandkids, were somewhere up there on the list. but definitely my mother, Dottie Neustadt, who's probably watching on Zoom today, the highest joy in his life, I would say. Also, he felt true joy when the Walmart superstore came to Ardmore, and he was truly, truly happy about that. And the other thing that gave him joy is, if any of the Neustadt students are here today, that lit him up from inside, and he would be talking to every single one of you today if he was here. So the pinnacle, though, of his love, of everything he ever did at OU, was the partnership with the Neustadt program and World Literature Today. World Literature Today first gave the Neustadt International Prize for Literature in 1970, and in 2003, really instigated by my sister Kathy, the NSK Neustadt Prize for Literature was conceived. My family is proud of our support for these prizes, but we are even more delighted by our working relationship with World Literature Today, OU, and the many writers and students who have benefited from our collaboration with this university. And we want to give a big, once again, shout out to the Neustadt students who take the Neustadt course every year. These students and the work they do in our programs and their commitment were the focus and the heart of my dad's love for the Neustadt program. So please know that. The Neustadt Prize program began with the vision of World Literature Today from editor Ivar Ivask, my grandmother Doris Neustadt, and my dad Walter Neustadt. These three believed that World Literature Today and OU would celebrate literary excellence in some unique and powerful ways, and they worked to make this vision a reality. Ivar Ivask established an International Literary Prize in 1969, and in 1970, my grandmother, Doris, created the endowment that became the Neustadt International Prize for Literature. My father and Ivar continued to promote the Neustadt Prize until my father's death in 2010 to be one of the most honored literary awards in the world, what the New York Times calls the prize second in importance only to the Nobel Prize in Literature. Ivar and my father also created a distinct identity for the Neustadt Prize. The prize consists of a check and a certificate, but most prominently, the prize is associated with a handcrafted silver feather. The feather looks like an eagle feather and is thick and heavy and a little over a foot long. We're so proud of our family's contributions to programs at the University of Oklahoma and World Literature Today, and we look forward to promoting the reach and impact of the tradition that my grandmother and parents first began nurturing so long ago. And then just on a personal level, I want to say one thing to Boris. I read your book, Murambi, Book of Bones, and you know, I have to claim ignorance. You know, I knew that this event happened, but of really the true essence of this experience. And people will say to me, well, what's the book about? And I kind of have no words. You know, I can say, oh, it's about the massacre of Rwanda. But you had a quote that really struck me in your book. And the quote says it all to me. All that is absolutely unbelievable. Even words aren't enough. Even words don't know what to say. And you put the words there, and you created a book that, well, it was just, I have no words, you know, for the experience I had in reading it. So I want to thank you for that experience. And I want to thank everybody so much for being here today. And it's such an honor, you know, to be here with you and to be here with everybody that is here with you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. That's so well said. It's hard not to feel the presence of Walter Neustadt. because he was such a big part of what we do here for so long, and it's really his vision, I think, that we are fulfilling even today. Finally, Kathy Neustadt, the K in the NSK, lives in Denver and is a freelance field producer for ABC News and has worked on productions of World News Tonight, Good Morning America, and Nightline. You've undoubtedly seen her work at some point. She's the past chair of the Meisel Arts and Culture Board at the Denver Jewish Community Center and is proud to have endowed the annual Neustadt Jam Fest, which every fall in Denver features visiting authors, artists, musicians, and new films. It's a big deal in Denver and a wonderful program. She's a trustee at the Rose Community Foundation in Denver and chair of the Jewish Life Committee at the Rose Foundation. In 2015, Kathy was honored by the Meisel Center when she received its Cultural Achievement Award, which was a kind of Person of the Year award. I was there for it. It was just amazing. And that same year, she also received the Regents Alumni Award for service to OU. Kathy graduated from the University of Denver in mass communications and has 2 children, Tess and Josh Hankin. Please give a warm welcome to my good friend, Kathy Neustadt.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you all this afternoon. Every year, it's so interesting to look back at how the Neustadt Prize has grown and developed over the last 20 years. When we were younger, we would come to the award ceremony and we'd have a lovely dinner and a lovely evening honoring the recipient. And that was wonderful, but it was an evening, and now it's a multi-day celebration. So much has changed and more. For starters, there are now 2 prizes, the Neustadt Prize and the NSK Prize for Children and Young Adult Literature, although I'm still upset it's the NSK and not the KSN. But, and so now every year, instead of every other year, we honor an extraordinary creative artist. There are now classes that are written for students to learn and to study. The laureates, both here at the university, in public schools in Oklahoma, and also at Colorado Academy in Denver. There are books and tuition scholarship programs, so every student who wants to can participate in these programs. I mentioned the multi-day event built around the awarding of the prize, the annual Neustadt Lit Fest. It introduces OU students and others to the culture, the politics, and the arts of the Neustadt Prize winners' home country and celebrates their culture. And now, post-pandemic, we're able to offer all of this to our virtual audience worldwide. And what was once a small office on the campus in 1970 is now the home of World Literature Today. And it's so robust now, and it has the most amazing staff, and we're so grateful to everybody that helps put this together and this beautiful magazine. But at the center of all of this outreach and activity will always be the 2 most important prizes. As Nancy mentioned, in 1970, the WLT editor Ivari Vask, my grandmother Doris, and later my father, began creating the distinct identity for the Neustadt Prize as we know it today. The prize consists of a check and a certificate, but as Nancy said, most prominently the prize includes a handcrafted silver eagle's feather, which is thick, heavy, and over a foot long. The image of the feather is a powerful statement about the Neustadt Prize. Eagle feathers are traditionally instruments for writing, and are synonymous with creativity, beauty, and grandeur. For us, the silver feather is intended to capture the many associations that literature itself has, the power to express much about our lives, and also the power to shape who we become. We're proud of the recognition that the Neustadt Prize has received as one of the most important literary prizes in the world. And I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but the New York Times has said that this prize is second only in its importance to the Nobel Prize for Literature. We, of course, think the Nobel Prize is second only to the Neustadt Prize for Literature. Known for its integrity and its ability to identify major writers on the rise, the Neustadt Prize is one of the jewels in the crown of achievements at the University of Oklahoma, and we're so proud of all that it has accomplished. Now, it's my honor to introduce the writer and the translator who nominated Boubacar Boris Diop for the Neustadt Prize. Jennifer Croft grew up in Tulsa, where she attended the University of Tulsa. In 2018, she was awarded the Man Booker International Prize for her translation of the novel Flights. In 2020, Croft's translation of the Book of Jacob was shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize. And in 2022, Croft received a Guggenheim Fellowship for her first novel, Homesick. Please give a warm welcome to Jennifer Croft. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I just want to say hi to my mom and dad who are watching on Zoom. My mom did her master's degree at OU, so it's very exciting. This is my first time here, though. So in 2016, I was asked to serve as a judge for a small literary prize called the Best Translated Book Award. Each juror received around 200 books. Not everybody read all or even any of these entries. I had just moved to a new city where I knew almost no one and where I had nothing if not the time to read. There were popular books and critical darlings, hipster underdogs with clever covers, titles that promised wisdom or adventure, books by authors I'd translated myself. Every once in a while, there was a book I couldn't put into any category. One such book was a novel called Domigolo by a man named Boubacar Boris Diop. As soon as I started reading, I knew I had found my nomination for the prize. It was sweet and insightful, winsome and profound. It was a novel that felt like a friend, like a conversation over a glass of wine on a wobbly little table on a busy street that makes you feel like the world is filled with possibilities again, like every passerby shimmers with interest, and like the lights in the distance are a dazzling magic that might transform you into a more thoughtful, more feeling person, a person able to pay attention again. Alas, that book was not the winner of the Best Translated Book Award, and perhaps in an effort to compensate for my failure to persuade my fellow jurors, I tracked down the translator of Domigolo and began an interview with her over email. But over time and at a distance, that interview fizzled and was never finished or published. I made friends in my new city, I got married, I wrote my own books. Years passed, and I kept my marked-up copy of Domigolo on the bookshelf in the bedroom of wherever I lived, as my husband, another Boris, and I moved to newer cities still. I also read some of the author's other works, and I discovered that they were all as great as Domigolo, each in its own ambitious, warm way. In 2021, when I was asked to nominate an author for a big prize called the Neustadt, my selection was immediately obvious to me. Fiction is an act of rupture, writes Boris Diop in an essay called Write and Keep Quiet, in that it brings the conflicts and failures of a social group to the surface rather than trying to conceal them. The writer is, by definition, a traitor. That also means he is a being of pure love. Diop is not only a preeminent writer of fiction and nonfiction, but a preeminent activist too. He co-founded Senegal's first independent daily paper and served as editor-in-chief of another Dakar news source. He co-owns a bookshop in Dakar that hosts events and debates. He co-founded a publishing house and launched a new imprint that publishes world literature translated into Wolof. His brilliant critiques of colonial and post-colonial violence have changed the way we think about the 20th century as well as our own. Toni Morrison called his novel about the Rwandan genocide, Murambi, the Book of Bones, a miracle. Murambi was a turning point in Diop's career. He articulated his literary project with urgency and lucidity in a subsequent essay titled Transforming Genocide into Art. While the delirious cruelty of the perpetrators of this genocide is difficult to comprehend, it is not as senseless as one might think. By humiliating these innocent people before cutting them up with a machete, the killers wanted to convince themselves, and especially their victims, that they were not really human, and that nature had erred by putting them on this earth. That may be why the denialists are always slightly taken aback when one holds up the evidence of facts and figures for them to see. In their view, nobody died, because the people we are making such a fuss about never had the right to exist in the first place. This is why writing fiction is an excellent way of opposing the génocidaire and his machinations. It gives the victims a soul, and even if it does not resuscitate them, it at least gives them back their humanity through the ritual of mourning. Diop's oeuvre foregrounds memory as resistance and imagination as revitalizing, rehumanizing force. He deserves every prize. I agree that this is a better prize than the Nobel Prize, but I hope he also gets that one. In, in the words of Domigolo's exceptionally gifted translator, Vera Wolfing-Leckie, who would have been thrilled to be here with us today, but who died tragically at the start of the pandemic, the message of Diop's work is certainly salient for readers in many countries right now. Potentially brutal political forces are rising to the surface in many places, and many of the rights and freedoms people have fought and died for over many decades are seriously at risk. I'm beyond honored and deeply delighted to be here for Boubacar Boris Diop's victory of the Neustadt Prize.
Okay. I'd like to ask to come back to the podium, Kathy, Nancy, and Susan, and Boris Diop, please. And yes, I am going to milk this moment just a little bit, because I realize that every year we go through this procedure and we give these wonderful things that the winner gets to see, but you don't get to see them. So I'm going to share just a little bit. So one of the things that Mr. Diop is going to receive will be this certificate, distinguished. He's going to receive a prop. We don't give checks anymore, we wire money, but for this occasion we have a prop. And then I want to show you something really special. So first off, hold this tight so it doesn't open. This is a really beautiful box. They're made every couple of years when we give the prize. They're made anew, and we find a great craftsman who can make a beautiful box. It says Neustadt on the top. Are you ready for this? Nobody ever gets to see these except the winner. And it is a work of art that's made in two places, anywhere. There's in Dallas and Santa Fe, New Mexico, there is the secret of how to make these beautiful feathers. It was designed, 50 years ago. And it is just a gorgeous thing. I believe we have 9 of them in a vault in Arvis Bank in Oklahoma. And so we'll probably have to make some more in about a decade. So that's what we're giving. So with that, I would like to ask Susan to give Mr. Diop the certificate.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And the prop, I'd like Nancy to give him the prop, symbolizing the transfer of money that's being wired. So. And Kathy, please give the feather. And I will just interject something. This is probably won't be the last time we say this today, but Best du dello Simone, happy birthday. And
Happy birthday.
Best du dello Simone, see, that's pretty close. Please join me in welcoming the 27th winner of the Neustadt International Prize for Literature. Boris.
Very much, yeah. Oops. Okay. So it's a big day for me. October 26th, it's my birthday. Yeah. Yeah, and it's somewhat strange. It's a bit bizarre, but yeah, it's nice. I like that. For my birthday, I have a real gift. And this gift, that's the most important thing for any writer of our time, the Neustadt International Prize for Literature. Really, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart all those who have drawn the attention of so many readers around the world to my modest literary production. My gratitude goes first and foremost to the generous and insightful Neustadt family, especially Nancy, Susan, and Kathy, who just gave me this award. I'm really, really very, very grateful. You know, I say insightful because a family who decides to put so much money, I think I can say that, just in the development of universal literature, really, it shows something very, very great. It tells something about them, about their heart, and about, I think, their intelligence. I would like also to thank the rightly named review World Literature. For months, maybe, exactly for 12 months, we had exchanges, Boyana, myself, with Robert and Danielle. And you could tell, I saw that really what they want is to maintain this literary prize at the highest level. And thank you also to Oklahoma University, where we are, and its president, Joseph Arroz Jr. I'm proud to have been chosen by a distinguished jury, a jury very so representative of what has been called the World Republic of Letters. A jury with only concern about, above all, with transparency and which operate accordingly to particularly strict rules. The fact that they have judged my work worthy of the Neustadt delivers me from persistent doubts and about the quality of my production, and allows me to think that I have not been writing in vain for so many years. But the joy I feel this evening is mixed with sadness, because I would have liked to share this special moment with so many of my dear departed friends, such as Charlie Surknet from Minnesota and Antonio Lozano, a writer from Spain. I would have liked to see happiness in the often discreetly anxious eyes of Vera Lecky, my friend and enthusiastic translator. And if I have saved the name of Jennifer Croft, who nominated me for the end, it is to emphasize how grateful I am to her for having believed in my work and for having defended it with great energy. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer and I didn't know each other and had never met before. But that doesn't really matter, to put it that way, because thanks to the miracle of the text, our imaginations met, our minds traveled side by side from one continent to the other. This said, I was aware that this ceremony, certainly the most important of my literary life, would not be easy. Before me, many of Neustadt Prize winners, disconcerted by such a prestigious distinction, probably felt a little lost when they were pushed to the front of the stage and asked to speak. This may be surprising for writers who have always refused to remain silent, many times at the cost of their freedom or even their lives. It must be said that the moment when the writer, alone in front of the white page, is about to produce meaning and emotions, is the moment of their absolute freedom. This freedom is in the very act of speaking, just speaking, because no one has ever commissioned them to write a text with still uncertain contour. And besides, it will not take long for the writer to realize it. Very few will want to hear what they have to say. But it will take more to make the writer give up the posture of challenge, which reminds us Aimé Césaire, who wrote in his notebooks of return to the native land. This is what he wrote: accommodate yourself to me. I do not accommodate myself to you. Accommodez-vous de moi, je ne m'accommode pas de vous. I have just mentioned one of my mentors, Aimé Césaire, one of those without whom I would probably never have tried my hand at writing. I think this evening there's no better occasion for me to say what I hope on various registers to Cheikh Anta Diop, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Cheikh Aliou Ndao, Ayikwe Arma, Mongo Betty, but also to a certain storyteller from my childhood whose voice remains so clear and strong in my memory so many years later. By making me discover better than all the books the power of suggestion of words, she gave me from my adolescence the audacity to shout, standing at the center of the stage, "Les Bonnes," which means once upon a time. While waiting for the whole world to answer with a passionate voice, "Le Peon," meaning that of all the story that can be told on earth, only mine seems to be worthy of their interest and that they are dying to hear it. Was it early arrogance? Certainly, but this shift into delirium came above all from a deep desire. A terrible stutter had made me both a social and, or almost a social, and naturally eager to seek refuge in fables, whether oral or written. Why? It was just in order not to be condemned to silence in the strictest meaning of the word silence. This is how finds oneself labeled as a politically committed writer later on. I know that the word commitment triggers in many writers, and they are not necessarily supporters of art for art's sake, a smile of content when they hear that. They don't like it. In fact, they despise it. On the contrary, I believe that there is no harm in putting one's creative energy at the service of the humiliated and the offended. That's Dostoevsky's title. And there are cases where one should not write anything if one cannot choose between the perpetrator and the victim. This is the first lesson of history and of humanity that our time can draw from the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. In truth, there is no worse enemy for people of goodwill than silence. And that's why we write. For this reason, from the evening of the Neustadt announcement, I said I welcome the opportunity because it would give me the possibility to continue the work of memory about the Rwandan tragedy, but also to keep fighting against the peace of mind of the genocidaire. If we say that literature is life, it must also be understood in this way. Thank you once again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Wonderful job.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Kathy to come up here and Daniel from downstairs. That's it for the prize presentation. We're going to do a little bit of a wrap-up of the last couple of days. If you're just joining us right now on Zoom, I'm RC Davis-Undiano, Executive Director of World Literature Today, and we've just given the Neustadt International Prize for Literature to Mr. Boubacar Boris Diop, and we are so pleased to have him here. It's just been a wonderful 3 days of this Lit Fest, and it's all been about Mr. Diop. We've created a kind of cultural backdrop, we hope, a little bit. The culture, the literature, to some degree the politics of Senegal and West Africa, trying to help students at the University of Oklahoma understand the incredible importance of his work and the significance of his receiving this award. And so I want to ask, I think Daniel's making his way down here. I think I'm going to turn to Kathy Neustadt, film producer for many TV shows and a member of the legendary Neustadt family who's done so much for the University of Oklahoma. And Kathy, maybe you could just share some of the highlights, maybe some of the events you attended that meant the most to you this week during the Lit Fest.
Well, that's hard to do. Everything I attended was fabulous. I think today was the culmination of a great 3 days, but to me today was so special. The film of the dance we saw where they took one of Boris's essays and did this beautiful interpretation, and it had 3 people in it. It was modern dance. It was beautiful. It was recorded. I hope you can go back and watch it. Obviously, the keynote yesterday and then the acceptance speech today were highlights. And watching these filmmakers that have been here all week filming Boris for a documentary that is being produced in Senegal, and watching them and watching the work they did on a previous documentary has been special. And really always for me, it's meeting the people that are here to talk about your culture, your work. They're lovely people, meeting Jennifer Croft, who nominated you, meeting Bohana. It's hard to narrow down to one thing. It's just been a 10. It's been great.
Daniel, could I get you over here? I'll have to push the microphone way up to reach you, but maybe you could talk about some of the events that meant the most to you this week.
Actually, just this whole semester for me has been a real revelation. Teaching the seminar devoted to Boris's work has been an honor. I've been a teacher of high school students and college students for almost 30 years now, but I haven't taught a literature class for some time, and I'd have to say this is maybe the most challenging syllabus I've ever had to create in terms of reckoning with a writer. I read Francophone writers in grad school, Glissant, many Césaire, Fanon, and so many of the greats of the Négritude movement and into the 21st century. I'd never read Boris's work, and reading The Night in His Shadow, reading Murambi with my students thus far into the semester, reading a text like Black and Blues and seeing it adapted into the film adaptation really just has been a renewal of my faith, really, or my belief. I guess I've never lost faith in literature, but in a renewal of my sense that what it has to say to us as readers, as fellow artists, perhaps writers, that it has this universal value that I think just means so much to me personally, but also to my students, to our children, to the generations to come. So I would just say this whole week has been kind of the culmination of much that has been percolating for me as a scholar, as an editor, translator, writer, professor for at least 30 years now, and I'm really just honored to be part of it. Thank you, Boris.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
A couple more thoughts, and then I want to bring Kathy and Daniel back into this. I'm not sure that I've ever had quite the feeling during one of these Lit Fests where we give the Neustadt Prize that I've had this time of the just very special importance of what we're doing. Boris Diop's work is not known in the West as it should be. He's way under-recognized. And I had a sense that has a real ethical core to it, I think, that we're doing something very important here by helping the world to understand the importance of his work and the significance of his work and what his work marks. And Boris has provided us with so many moments of reflection during this week. He's somebody who's been willing to speak truth to power. He is very dedicated to truth and reconciliation for what happened in Rwanda, and in a much wider sense, what's happened to the African world as it's fallen under the shadow of the West. And sometimes just the asking of these questions, knowing how to ask them, even if we don't have clear answers, is so important. And I think he's provided so many of those moments where very important questions that we don't know how to ask very well in the West. We need to learn. And, and thank you for that. Thank you for your amazing work, the courage of your work, the steadfastness. You've been doing this for so long, and I think it's really making an enormous difference. And I think you forced us, and I'm sure this is the impact that your work has everywhere, to reflect on what we're doing and whether we're doing what we should be doing. And I want to really pose this question to Kathy and Daniel, because they're two of the most hardworking, dedicated people I know. And let me throw it to Kathy first. Your family has made a lot possible at the University of Oklahoma. My job, first off, I'm very happy with that part of it. Thank you very much. And this prize, and they've given OU its library, just a lot of amazing things. But Kathy gives so much more than that. She gives her time. She is a wonderful partner. And I guess my question to you is, why do you care so much about bringing world literature to the U.S. and all that you do for students? What drives that?
Well, I'm speaking for my whole family. It's not just me, but it's for everyone here. It's a big world out there. And what we've been able to do with these prizes is to recognize magicians, really, these fabulous authors and writers and minds, and bring it to this little crown in Oklahoma, an institution of learning. What drives us is what drives all of us to be here today. We want to learn. We want to make the world smaller. I didn't know about your culture, your world. Certainly I read about the Rwandan massacre, but you have, as Nancy said, there are no words. The words have no words. It's, we're driven because it makes the world smaller. It makes us all be next to each other and understand each other and have more tolerance and understanding and respect. And I hope that's what we can continue to do with this prize. We have already, we've learned about Haiti, and we've learned about West Africa, and we've learned about Australia, right? Maloof and Mozambique, and this is what drives us to continue this tradition and for us to keep you in your job. So.
I want to bring Daniel into this. Daniel's really one of the most dedicated people I know, intellectual, cultural worker. What he does for WLT goes way beyond the absolute requirements of the job. He's a poet himself. Maybe you could talk a little about your reflections this week, Daniel.
I would just thank you, RC, and thank you again for your leadership as a kind of a visionary yourself for what we've been able to accomplish over almost a quarter century now together at WLT. It's really, I think, an opportunity for us to reflect on our role as custodians of a legacy, our connection to the teaching mission of the university, the role that we play in the lives of our students and in the lives of our children, encouraging them to read the world as much as they can, and to, even if we're maybe here in this landlocked state, there's so much out there that we can discover through writers like Boris. And so for 96 years as, again, the custodians of world literature today and the tradition that it represents, now 50 plus years of the Neustadt Prize, I think it's just really an honor to be part of it and to think about how it's being carried forward in the work of Boris and now in the work of Jean Yang next year with our next Children's Prize laureate. So I think we just keep going back to the work and appreciating it and knowing that it's the work of a larger family, a larger community of writers, scholars, translators, benefactors, and so many others. So thank you again for this opportunity.
One last time, because I'm dying to say this again. Vespu de Simone, happy birthday, and Wolof. Does it sound like happy birthday to Wolof and you? I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that you do. We are honored to give you the prize this year. And folks, that's a wrap. Thank you so much.